I think that Bitcoin is a solution that's helpful to every person, every corporation, every government, every agency. I think it's just a constructive, useful thing. It's thermodynamically sound economic energy. So it's a well-engineered economic network, and that. As more people adopt it, and as liquidity increases in the mainstream institutional investor market, I think the volatility will decrease. It is decreasing. I mean, the last two investor classes are the technocrats. And this is a set of investors you want. They're the people that think Apple and Google and Amazon and Facebook and Microsoft are really powerful networks. And you can see the big winning stock ideas have been Microsoft, Apple, and Google. And the reason why is because they're more powerful than most nation states. It should be pretty clear to people right now that Apple has 1 billion users, and it would be easier for you to leave the United States of America and pick up your life elsewhere than it would be for you to leave the Apple ecosystem. And it's a very interesting idea, but if you're a tech investor, you could get behind that idea, and eventually just about everybody that got insanely wealthy over the past 20 or 30 years was a technocrat, really, if you think about it. And then eventually you get the Warren Buffetts and you get the Carl Icahns of the world that say, I don't know if I understand it, but it seems like a juggernaut, so I guess I'll buy $10 billion of it. And Warren Buffett made more money on Apple stock than he made in his entire life on everything else you've ever heard of, and he made that money faster. And so the technocrat, kind of wins over the mainstream investor, and Bitcoin is emerging as this dominant digital monetary network or dominant digital commodity network, or you could call it dominant digital property network. The thing that's most controversial is currency. Currency is very controversial. Every nation state wants to control their own currency. Currency is a medium of exchange,
Sometimes other countries want to control the currency of other countries.
And you could say it's a system of control, right? A medium of exchange, a unit account, a store of value. But the fourth thing, the system of control, turns out to be really, really important. So digital currency networks are very controversial, and there's a lot of uncertainty. But on the other hand, owning property is not controversial. And if Bitcoin is digital gold, then there is no nation of gold with subpoena power that's going to attack you for taking away its monetary premium. And the same is true if Bitcoin is better investment than real estate. Well, Congress and the Treasury and the FBI and FinCEN, they're not gonna take a lot of issue with the fact that you actually demonetize some commercial real estate by 2%. So Bitcoin is emerging as this digital property network, and it meets the use case of store of value. And all of the endorsements have made a huge difference. I mean, you got 4 presidential candidates that have come out pro-Bitcoin. That's kind of like a chicken in every pot, and everybody deserves to own their own home. And if everyone has an entitlement to own their own home, and I'm going to launch Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and I'm going to make home mortgages cheap because every American deserves to own a home, what you get is a lot of money flowing into that asset class, the entire mortgage-backed security asset and real estate. And there's a reason real estate's gone up 7% a year in all these cities for the last 100 years, right? Because it's a supported asset class. I think that Bitcoin is emerging as a supported asset class. If you've got the regulators endorsing it, Congress endorsing it, legislators endorsing it, you've got candidates endorsing it, then I think you've turned a corner. So I think we've turned a corner where you're either going to be an investor or a technocrat, or the last is maximalist. And, maximalist has sometimes people painted with this very, controversial brush. But I just think of maximalist as someone that thinks they're technocrat that thinks it's an ethical good. Like the don't be evil, remember when Google said don't be evil? If you thought it's an ethical good to give property rights to 8 billion people, and everybody in Africa, South America, and Asia deserves property rights, and you see a network that is nation-state resistant, that is not controlled by any company, that's a global network, that's open permissionless, then you could just say, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I believe this is an instrument of economic empowerment. It's good for the world. And that's not any different than saying I'm a math maximalist. People should learn mathematics. I think they should learn language. They should learn to read, write, do arithmetic. I'm in favor of fire and electricity. And so once you take that view, it's a bit stronger commitment than if you're a technocrat. You know, Apple and Google and Facebook, they don't operate in China the same way, especially Facebook and Google and Twitter. They're not in China at all. So when you're at the technocrat level, you're hitched your wagon to a corporation, and corporations are subject to, you know, leverage by nation states in the way that an open permissionless protocol like English or math or Bitcoin are not subject to. So that's what we're seeing right now. And I think everything's just been generally bullish and not easy, struggle, volatile, but progressing in a decent way for the good of the human race. I think I probably underestimated the volatility about a year ago. You know, before the entire meltdown when Bitcoin hit 66,000, I didn't think it would draw down to 16,000. I would have thought, I would think it'd be a volatility plus or minus 30% or something, and it turned out to be a bit more brutal this cycle. So sometimes just slightly underestimate the volatility. It's very difficult to figure out where we are in the life cycle. Otherwise, you know, everything that I thought would happen is happening. You know, I think sometimes people, they personalize this and they think, oh yeah, BlackRock is this one entity, or ESG is this one entity, or the bankers are against us. I don't think that's the way the world is. I think the world is 100 million organizations all trying to do the best thing as they see it with different information. And sometimes, you know, the 800-pound gorilla rolls over your leg and breaks your leg, but they didn't notice they broke your leg. You know, I think that Bitcoin is a solution that's helpful to every person, every corporation, every government, every agency. I think it's just a constructive, useful thing. It's thermodynamically sound economic energy. So it's a well-engineered economic network. And that being the case, there are very few people in the world that want to destroy their economy actively. Maybe the pure communists that are totally against property rights, but most people are trying to actually improve their economic circumstance. So the ones that understand that embrace Bitcoin, and the ones that don't understand Bitcoin may be skeptical of it, or may say, yeah, like when Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett don't endorse it, I don't think that they spend 1,000 hours thinking about it and they're our enemy. I just think that someone poked the bear and they spent 15 minutes thinking about it and they just don't understand it. So I think that the world is evolving in the way I would expect. People are just getting educated, and as they get more educated, the world rationalizes.